Joe Erwin, it is such a pleasure to sit down with you
and
have a chance to talk with you.
Yeah.
I hardly know where to begin because your career has been so fascinating, and you have been influential in so many layers and so many ways. And so I just want to kind of jump in and maybe start where you are now at Endeavor. Tell us kind of how you came to be there, how that happened, and kind of back us up a little bit into your career.
Sure. Well, you know, my career in Greenville as an entrepreneur started with the foundation that we built at Erwin Penland as a two-person ad agency, the two people being my wife Gretchen and me, and then one employee, and then another and another, and very slow growth for the first 3 years. We almost didn't make it a time or two, but you know, by year 3, we got a few breaks. We also worked very, very hard and grew to become the fastest growing ad agency in the South, one of the largest in the South, top 3 in the southern U.S., and then became part of IPG, Interpublic Group, through their Hill Holiday brand in Boston. And you know, I did that for 29 years, Gail.
Wow.
And after 29 years, I'm still in my 50s, and I'm going, okay, we've got the next generation team ready to lead the agency, or close to ready. And I can stay here and you know, work till I'm 65 or 70, but is there something new out there? And I had this idea bubbling for, hey, there are a lot of people who've started small agencies who worked at Erwin Penland, EP now, and you know, they were on their own, and some struggling, some doing okay. And I'm thinking, what if we created a community, a hub for marketing, advertising, PR type folks, and created a co-work space to it that would give smaller firms a chance to move in and become part of a larger community, so they could have the assets of training, of technology, you know, high-end technology, which if you're a 2-person agency or 6, you know, the technology that we had at Erwin Penland was some of the best in the world. Well, you know, when you get 400 people, you can amortize a lot of things and do things that you can't do with a small team. So in building Endeavor and finding a 20,000 square foot floor plate in the one building in downtown Greenville, beautiful building, central location, we were able to start with 9 members. That was about 3.5 years ago, wondering, oh my God, is this the time, Joe, when you have really blown it? You know, you've been blessed and lucky with Erwin Penland. But it was a little bit of a leap of faith. And my business partner, Shannon Wilbanks, who'd been at Erwin Penland.
Isn't it always a leap of faith?
It is. Well, yeah, it is. I mean, look, you can write business plans and all that stuff, and I'll be honest with you, you know, this is probably blasphemy. I'm not much for a business plan. If I can't scribble it on a piece of notepad paper, then I'm not going to pay attention. So the business plan for Endeavor was about a paragraph. And we believed in the concept. We talked to a lot of people in Greater Greenville. We did a lot of research, you know, online. And what a great tool to be able to do online research. And we knew, we didn't believe, we knew there was a market. We just had to do a better job than had been done before in Greenville to do something like this. And we think we're doing that. We've now got, I said 9 members, we've now got, I think 168, maybe 100, no, 174, because we just added a handful. So there's been a good growth curve to it.
And what an inspiring place to work, the one building.
Yeah, it's a great place. We designed the space. That was very important. We wanted the kind of space that as soon as you walked in the door, you felt inspiration surrounding you. You felt color and, you know, all the things that stimulate the senses are there. And people tell us when they visit, we had a group in from California the other day, and they're like going, wow, the vibe in here is so great. And you know, well, all we could do was say, well, thank you.
Yeah.
That is willful. And you know, and we still work very hard at it now. Almost 3.5 years later, we're still trying to enhance that.
Sure. And what you're doing for individuals coming in and having space there, bringing them in, it's almost like an empowerment, or
Yes.
You're creating an experience for them. Is that kind of the spirit of the work that you've always done?
Yeah, it is. Thank you. You know, I've always believed in, you know, that anybody with a dream and, you know, the belief and willing to work hard can achieve great things. You don't have to have a famous last name. It's not about where your family goes to church or what school you went to. It's what's the size of your dream and your work ethic, and you know, and some vision. And if we can then give you some tools so that you can, when you're small, punch above your weight, if you know that expression, be able to look and show well, that when you're competing with somebody else in the market or outside of market, a client, prospect can come see you in your space at Endeavor and go, wow, that may not be a big agency in terms of a ton of members, numbers, employees, but they're part of a community that really shows incredibly well. And you can make great presentations, things that my first few years of Erwin Penland, Gail, we presented on cardboard, seemingly, looking back on it, you know, and now with all the tools, of course, with technology, you can do a lot with bells and whistles.
Sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned family, and I know you're not from Greenville.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your growing up and so forth.
Yeah. Well, I had a great period of youth. We lived in Columbia, South Carolina as a baby. I was born in Florence, South Carolina, so I'm a great proud member of the PD Nation in South Carolina. I've never even heard that expression.
I haven't either. Wow.
I just coined it. But then we moved to Charlotte when I was maybe a year or two old. And really, Charlotte was kind of the thing I remember the most as a little boy. And it was a great place to live in the 60s. And by the late 60s, my father, who was in sales, he was your classic salesman of the 60s, got a new job opportunity in Tampa, Florida. So we moved to Tampa, and I'm thinking, I'm going to hate this and everything. Well, let me tell you something. Being a kid in Tampa, Florida, it ain't bad. It's, the weather's great. We lived on a golf course. Now, keep in mind, this was not a showy, this was a municipal golf course, or a goat trail almost, as we called it. But what a fun place for a kid to grow up. And so we loved it. And then tragically for me, while we're down there, my dad's my baseball coach, helps the scouts and everything. He died at age 39. Wow. Got sick around Thanksgiving time, and by 3 days after Christmas, he was gone. And boy, and so life gets, just changed so abruptly. Because my mom, who had grown up in the upstate of South Carolina, and she was the only one of her brothers and sisters who was outside the region, said, we've got to go to a place where I've got support. Yeah. And so she moved us to Greenville, South Carolina. We cried. Hated it. I get to Greenville and I think it's the most backward place in America. It was so conservative and just seemed like there's nothing to do. But you know what? You see over time, one, Greenville's changing. Number two, you get a little older and more mature and go, there's plenty to do here. Yeah, it's not all the crazy fun stuff down in Tampa, Florida that a kid can do, but there's a lot here. And so this area shaped me, but so did Tampa and so did Charlotte.
So tell me a little bit more. I want to hear about your love for Clemson and how that came to be.
Clemson, what is that? Well, Clemson is really special. I mean, obviously to me and even to Gretchen, my wife, who went to UGA, but we have great affection for both of them. But Clemson, of course, is where I went to school. So And a quick funny story about Clemson and me, I didn't want to go to Clemson. My dad had gone to Clemson. All of my uncles, every one of them, had gone to Clemson. And so it was assumed, well, you will go to Clemson. Well, I was a rebellious little jerk. And I thought, well, just because they think I have to go to Clemson, I'm not going to Clemson. So I had been accepted at the University of South Carolina.
Oh.
I had my roommate lined up, and that's where I was going to go. And I was going to show the world and my mom and all my uncles, and they were going to like hate on it. But I thought, no, I'm going to USC. And then in my senior year of high school, I fall head over heels for a young lady at Greenwood High School. I think this is the young lady that I'm going to marry, and she's going to Clemson. And so last minute, I go, all right, let me try and get into Clemson. And I had to get in somewhat provisionally because the major I wanted was full. There was no housing. So what they basically told me, long story short, is we can get you into this department, but you got to live off campus. That's on you. And so I lived at my grandmother's house in Central South Carolina. Oh boy, there's an 18-year-old's, thought of a good time. But she was a great lady. But I lived there for a semester until the dormitory opened up. And so I was there almost, I don't want to say against my will. And the rest of that story is that lady dumps me in the first 2 weeks of school. No. So here I am at Clemson University going, wait a minute, I came because of her, and she has dumped me. And I'm thinking, boy, did I make a mistake.
That's pretty humbling.
It's very humbling. And I was going to try out for the soccer team, and what happened next was the start of a journey that was amazing. And I find out pretty quickly the soccer players are way beyond me. I was a good player in high school, captained an undefeated team. But these guys that Coach Ibrahim had coming in were from Nigeria and Ghana. They were playing in World Cups, and I go watch them at a pickup game before their formal practice had begun. And I'm going, my soccer career, at least at Clemson, is over. Is over. And a friend of mine, not a close friend, but a guy who was a senior at Clemson, comes up to me, and he was well known to me in high school. We went to the same high school, and he said, Joey was my name. And he said, Joey, I heard you're not going to play soccer. You got to try out for cheerleader. And I looked at him, and I went, Jimmy? What do you think? There's something wrong with me here? and what do I know? And he said, Joey, I'm a cheerleader. And I think, oh God, open mouth, insert foot, right? Right? And I said, well, I'm sorry, Jimmy. I didn't mean anything by it, but guys, cheerleading, tell me about that. So he starts to tell me what it was like at Clemson. And, with the girls look very athletic, very demanding and physical. And also, I had seen the Mite Man. My senior year of high school, and I was able to come over for a game my senior year of high school. And I sat in the student section, and I thought, man, that guy's got a great gig. He can control the whole stadium from that platform with an amplified microphone by being in front of the student body, because the student body was big enough, loud enough to really control the stadium cheering. Sure. And so I told this friend, Jimmy, I said, well, I'd try out for cheerleader if I could get that job.
The mic gig.
The mic man. And he goes, well, you could, but you have to work your way up to it, and there's never a guarantee. You'd have to be on the line first, and also tried out JV. And anyway, that started to change my Clemson experience because I got more and more involved in activities as people learned who I was. And as you know, Clemson's still that type of place.
It really is.
Where it's more like a family atmosphere, even though it's getting much bigger, where individuals can stand out, can make their way. And I saw that and went for it. I participated in debate. I was in a fraternity, which at the time, was something I was very proud of. And I'm not saying I wouldn't be proud of that now, but I know fraternities that have had a checkered existence in recent years in sororities, the Greek life, and I'm sad for that because my experience was outstanding with Pi Ka and Dr. Jerry Reel and the great advisors we had. But they really shaped who I was, and I'm forever indebted to Clemson because I couldn't, no matter what we do to give to Clemson and donate, and Gretchen and I have been honored and proud to do some things and create a center for branding that bears our family name.
And Clemson is very grateful, as
Well,
you know.
they are, and they've made that clear, Gail. But the truth is, we can't give enough. I mean, I can't repay it. It's helped me become, whatever level of success I've had, I give a ton of that credit to Clemson University.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
No,
I
my
really
pleasure.
didn't know about the.
Yeah.
I knew that you were a cheerleader. Did you finally get on the mic? Did you get control
I
of
did.
that?
I became the mic man.
I know that was a big time for you.
Yeah, and I was. It was a great run. I was the first ever All-American, head cheerleader or cheerleader NCAA All-American. So that was kind of a kick that I was proud of, and it ended up, by the way, that girl who dumped me and
Yes.
who she had tried out for JV cheerleader. So we end up on the same squad. This is very uncomfortable.
Interesting.
At the time, 13,000 students, and we're one of 12.
What are the chances?
Yeah, what are the chances? It was evil and mean, and I thought, I'm going to get even with her. So I do what stupid young guys do. I started to get even with her. I didn't talk to her ever again. Ever. For about 2 years, 3 years. And then she blew out her knee and couldn't cheer anymore, so that went away, and by then I'm dating somebody else. I know that's really over forever, but we have no relationship at all. By her senior year, she tries out for cheerleader, and I'm on the panel because I'm the head cheerleader, not just the mic man. I'm the head cheerleader, which has administrative responsibilities, watching tryouts and voting, and here she comes out, and I watch her with now 2 knee braces try out.
Wow.
I was moved to tears. It was so courageous. And we get to be best friends.
That's
and to this
amazing.
day, we're friends. I was with her about a month ago.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of an amazing story. So
Yeah.
you learn grace,
Yes.
and then you realize that was meant to be.
Yes.
Because now I've got a wife of almost 35 years.
Yes.
Did okay.
And how did you meet Gretchen?
I met Gretchen at work.
Okay.
We both worked at an ad agency in Greenville, Leslie Advertising,
Sure.
that doesn't exist anymore, but it was a tremendous, tremendous ad agency in the 80s, 90s, and
One of the best in the country.
it was truly one of the best, regional agencies in the country, and I consider that another gift too, that I was able to work with such good people. And I met Gretchen, and we were just friends. You know how that starts. And we're just friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then 2 years later, I'm living in New York by myself, working at an agency up there, and going, "Hey, just friend, would you
Yeah.
like to come up for a trip?" And next thing you know, we're married.
So Steve Jobs says you can't see it going forward, but looking back, you can connect all the dots.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
feel that way about your career?
Yeah. Not to be looked at lightly either, because I look back now and realize so much of it. I hear people say, I'm a self-made man or a self-made woman, and I just think that's hogwash. We're all a product of, what teachers did for us and what parents do for us, and I think I'm just the luckiest guy in the world, and I'm so thankful. And in another way that I'm lucky is now, I'm not the young guy anymore, and yet I still feel very young and very healthy, and I'm getting to do new things every year
Wonderful.
that are just incredible and that I could have never imagined even a couple of years ago or 3 years ago. So, I think the innovation and creativity keeps going as long as you believe you can do things.
I'm glad that you went there, because I have to say, I was just thinking, you probably are one of the most innovative people that I know throughout your journey. And what do you say to people who want to be more innovative in their lives?
Well, yeah, I'll tell you this, and I know, we chatted before and talked about, where would you consider yourself on a creativity range? And, I don't know the answer to that, and I'll let others judge that. But what I would tell other people is dare to be creative in your own mind. And it may not be doing what Steve Jobs did. I'm never going to be looked at in history as doing something along the line of Steve Jobs. But while I've got time now, it's how creative can I be, and with others too, Gail, by the way. I'm very much believe in the concept of we, not me. And, with my team, my core group of colleagues in any endeavor, pardon the pun, what can we do together? Let's live the thought of we can invent the future. You've been to our Florida Endeavor and seen that giant painting that that talks about that notion of the people who believe they can invent the future, they do. So we believe we can create future, and that we can change things, and now I just want to do good, because so much was done that was good for me. For example, the Greenville Triumph Soccer team.
Yes.
When we started that, gosh, it's been about 2 years now that we actually signed on the bottom line to buy a franchise in this new.
How bold! How did you decide you were going to do that?
Because I was crazy as hell.
Oh my.
When I had played soccer, I love the sport.
Right.
But what I liked way beyond, and just to be clear, this is not about sports. It is the sports, and the soccer is a platform. So the Greenville Triumph exists to create joy. Period. One word: joy. We want to give fans a joyous feeling at games. We want to go into underserved communities with our players and work with kids who don't have the means to play in the academies that can be very expensive, thousands of dollars a year in some cases, to play elite level soccer. And they're playing at Y's and rec leagues, but they can suddenly get free clinics from professional soccer players. And Gail, it's the group on our team are amazing. They're from 7 countries. So it's this, and that's the other thing I love about it. It's not just me, it's that we love, our organization loves about the sport. It's the most democratic sport in the world. Boys play, girls play. And it's not different for boys and girls. In basketball, there's smaller ball. And in other sports, it's baseball, but then there's softball. No. In soccer, girls and boys play the same exact game, same ball, same field. And I love that about the sport. And we love that it doesn't take a ton of money, and that you see so much diversity on a field. You see black, white, brown, tall, short, you see it all. And so to use the Triumph as a tool for creating joy, expanding joy, that's what, if people ask me, why'd you do this? It's for joy.
That's what drew you to doing it,
Yep.
just to create that experience,
Yep.
bring people together. So you must have been in Hog Heaven that first night.
Oh my God.
When so many people came out and cheered, and
It was great.
it was kind of amazing to see
kind of
on the
amazing.
very first night
It
that
was
kind of
amazing.
a rallying around.
Yeah, it was. It was one of the highlights of my life, and to have standing room only crowd
Yes.
at a stadium that didn't exist 6 months prior. To build a stadium in 3 months is remarkable. It's a unique company, Seating Solutions. They build a lot of the stadiums around golf courses for televised tournaments. Those things have to go up and come down, and so it's a great stadium, great seating, and seats about 4,300 with some standing room. That's a pretty good crowd. And we play at a place that's special. Legacy Early College in the West End, in City View to be specific.
It was a cool area.
Yeah, and there's joy in that too, because we're at a school that was really created so as not to give up on some kids, because most of the kids who go to school there are free lunch, free breakfast, and some free dinner. So we're now part, of the school, working with them, and that too is joyous.
You're always connecting dots, aren't you?
Trying to.
You're always making connections and making things happen. You're dabbling some in real estate now?
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
Well, that too is, and I wouldn't do that just to do real estate. I don't care, frankly. But this one's about joy too. So I'm going to quit saying the word every
It's a good
sentence, but it is a good word. No, the project that I'm working on right now is Lakeside Lodge in Clemson. So one is Clemson, and that gets my attention right away. And two, it's with some guys I've known for years, Steve Mudge, Leighton Cubbage. Leighton's been a dear friend for, a lot of years. Somebody, not just a friend, but I have enormous respect for. And what, they talked to me about, and I think I was the first investor in it. They called me and they described what they wanted, and it was a concept I knew about because Gretchen and I had invested in a similar concept that they had brought to life in Asheville, the residences at Biltmore. That's both a condo development, but also hotel. So that if you can buy a condo, but you're not going to use it a ton,
It's very clever.
you put it in the hoteling program, and it makes you money.
Very
Going,
clever.
what's not smart about this concept?
Yeah, it's true.
So Leighton and Steve asked me what I thought of the concept, and I said, brilliant. And where's the piece of dirt that you've acquired? And they said, it's across the street, or across the water from the stadium. And I'm like going, when do I write my check? And where do I send it?
Right.
And so we're pretty heavily invested in that. And they've let me, or I've asked for, the chance to draw upon my advertising, marketing knowledge. And so I worked on the name, Lakeside Lodge, and logo with a creative team that I work with. And now where I'm working on that for the restaurant concept, which for me, I'm a food guy and a wannabe cook. So that is fun. So it's too about trying to create something family oriented. Clemson, as you know, it's all about family.
Always.
And this place is going to have more amenities than any property that's been developed in the Clemson area. Practice football field, kind of not regulation size, but about I think it's a 60 or 70 yard field for kids to play on and stuff. So for tailgate parties on the weekends, and I can't even name it all. There's a little amphitheater and hot tubs and pool that Jim Riggs, the former All-American, his company is putting in. So there are a lot of Clemson people involved, a lot of alums, a lot of athletes who went on to pro careers are part of the investment group that pooled resources.
Yes.
And to be part of that, are you kidding me? That's cool too. And I think we're going to do well. I mean, that one, unlike soccer, which I've told people, I don't care if I make money in soccer. I don't want to lose money. And Gretchen feels very strongly about that, by the way. But, this will make money, but we're creating jobs. And that's great. Creating a local, strong asset. I think for the university, we're not connected to the university, and I have to say that. But we want to be a tool that the university can use for people that are being recruited to join the faculty.
Absolutely.
For families of students being recruited, because now we recruit students. You know that better than most. We're trying to get the best of the best, and not just the highest GPAs and the highest test scores, but the kind of students, diverse, and kids who really want to live kind of the Clemson life of giving back and helping others.
Character.
Yeah. So we want to be part of that.
Joe, your creativity is just everywhere. What are you excited about and curious about right now?
Well, I'm curious about certain issues. I read a book by Melinda Gates, The Moment of Lift. I would recommend it to anybody. And now I'm reading Michelle Obama's book, Becoming. And these are two of the best books I've ever read. And one thing came to me, Gail, and I told Gretchen this at home, I don't know if I should be saying this, for air. I don't know how many people will see this. But something occurred to me as I was listening to Melinda, and I listened. I love Audible.
Me too.
And I'm listening to Melinda read this book that she penned, and I realized as I'm listening to it, I'm a feminist.
Tell me more.
I am a card-carrying feminist, and I'm damn proud of it because I do believe that women have been put down in the world historically, and we're talking about half the population of the world. We're talking about the half that makes life possible, and to me it's just unconscionable that we have to have conversations about. For example, because I love soccer, well, should the U.S. women's team be paid equal pay to the men? We have to have a debate about that? I'll not say the word I'm thinking, but that's nonsense.
Yeah.
It's just nonsense. And they do the same thing. They work just as hard. They train just as hard. So those issues are now part of some focus. I don't know how I will make things better on that front. I do some with my businesses. I've always believed in having women in leadership positions. I've always had women as business partners because, look, we all stereotype. Me too. I'm not perfect.
Yeah,
but here's one thing I just believe in my bones. Women see things differently than guys. And that, it's not that it's always better, it's just different. There's a different lens, a perspective, and I don't want to be in a key decision-making spot without having a woman give an opinion about the decision to be made. Because to do so, I told somebody, and I realized, I believed this for a long time, this is not new. When we started our ad agency, so that's my oldest business enterprise, over 30 years ago, that in the earliest years when we were growing, I said, hey, we're going to hire girls, we're going to hire minorities, and I think I did say girls at the time, but we were also young. And I said, because I got news for you. I can't think of anything more boring in the world than to have a team of 15 white guys and nobody else.
Groupthink, and mainly on the left side of the brain, probably, according to the data.
According to the data.
Yeah.
So that's an issue where I want, and look, and I'm a father, and I've got both a boy and a girl,
Sure.
now a man and a woman. And, I want them to have equal opportunities, always. So this is something, again, maybe if we're talking a year from now or 2 years from now, you can say, what have you done to advance that cause?
Yes.
Don't know the answer yet, but that's on my mind.
Yeah, I hear that. So I'm not sure anywhere in there I know how you actually launched into this highly creative field when you were studying at Clemson. How did you end up in the classes, and how did you, because that's the thing that I think we all kind of come here with a purpose, but it takes some of us longer than others to find that thing that we're supposed to do. And clearly you hit that, and you continued to do it and proliferate into different fields. That highly creative thing you did, how did you get into that right out of college?
It was luck to a degree, but it was also Clemson yet again.
Yet again.
Because I couldn't, the major I was in, was not for me. So I went, I always liked politics. And, I was a kind of a kid who would watch convention coverage. I was a geek in that way. Kids say, what did you watch last night? I said, well, I watched the Republican convention, or I watched the Democratic convention. And I watched them all. It wasn't about party. It was just about, it was fascinating to see what went down. And so I thought when I needed to change majors, I thought, I'm going to see if I can get into political science. I don't even know what political science is, keep in mind. But I did. I got into political science and studied and thought it was interesting. Didn't alter my life. I thought I was going to go become a lawyer. That's kind of what my mom had hoped would happen. I thought it would give meaning to my dad's name, who raised me to age 12 with my mom. And and so that's where I was headed. And then one day in my senior year, I signed up for a course, Political Science 443, Public Opinion and Propaganda. The main thing we did in that course, Gail, was to make TV ads for made-up political campaigns. And I thought, well, that might be interesting. Interesting. Hell, that was awesome.
You had so much fun.
I'm making TV ads, I'm writing them, I'm shooting them, editing them. My course mate, classmate, we made him the, quote, politician. So he appeared in all the ads running for office, you know, this whole made up thing. And I knew right then, this is what I will do professionally. I will make commercials.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that was it.
That was
class,
it.
that moment.
That was it. I knew it would be advertising. I thought it was going to be political advertising. But see, this is how we are all shaped by others. Because I thought I knew everything at 18 and then again at 22. I had all the answers. And this friend who was older and wiser said, Joe, you don't want to go into political advertising, at least not right out of school. You will get pigeonholed. And then if you want to go into a general market agency in New York or Chicago, you'll never get asked because they tend to think of political ad agencies as kind of one-trick ponies. And honestly, he said, and I know because I've been there, they think of the people that do that type of advertising to be hacks, mostly.
So good advice for you.
Yeah, it was. So I listened, and instead I interviewed at a place called Leslie Advertising and a place called Henderson Advertising, and loved the feel in both of them. And, you know, they made me the offer at Leslie first. I was eager to get to work. My mother was eager for me to get to work. I'd, you know, been out of Clemson about a month. And so I took the offer. The rest is history.
Okay.
And then got to go work in New York for a few years, and that was amazing.
Yeah, you enjoyed being there,
loved it.
learning there.
Yep, loved the city. And right after Gretchen and I got married, she moved up, and she worked at a competing agency. You know, so we would get home at night. We'd have all kinds of things to talk about, and so it just made sense when we started an agency that we would both work in it. And people would ask, what's it like working with a spouse? Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
It's great because when we get home,
Yeah.
we talk about what was your day? What was your day like? Because we weren't doing the same parts. She was in media. I was creating advertising.
Sure.
And those two are just not even on the same, you know, they're just totally different work programs.
Sure.
So it worked great.
Joe, so I have to ask you, tell me something about yourself that you really like and embrace, and something that maybe you don't.
Well, I love to cook. And,
More creative,
yeah,
more creativity.
Yeah. Well, and for me, I've never had a hobby, really. And I kind of figured that early. Golf, how do I say this nicely? I suck. I just can't play golf.
Yeah.
And I've tried and took some lessons and all those things. And, you know, there was an old Clint Eastwood movie line, a man's got to know his limitations. I quickly figured out that golf was mine, so I don't play. And I play some tennis, but I wouldn't consider it a hobby. So a long time ago, I got turned on to a little bit of cooking. Cool. My dad was a cook, and so there was real connection there, real bonding. And so I started to cook, started to read cookbooks, and so now that's my hobby. And it is creative.
It is.
Because here's what I can promise anybody that might see and or hear this. If you want to talk about creativity and, you know, innovating things, recipes are part of that. And also, one of the great things, if you make it a hobby, this I can promise, if you're cooking, if you're trying new things, you can't let the burdens of the day weigh you down. There's no time for that when you're in the middle of a multi-course dinner preparation. It is plenty tasking. So therefore, you forget that, oh, today was terrible.
You have to stay focused.
You got to stay focused.
Yeah.
You got to stay in the moment.
Yeah.
So that is something I like about, you know, what I do, that it's kind of an outlet.
I like that.
But I get to share it with others too. And I think, you know, somebody asked me once, you know, why do you cook and why do you like to cook for others? Sometimes you do it because you want to do this. you know, was it good? Was it good? You're just waiting
Yeah.
for that positive affirmation. So in some ways, I'm like a dog. You know, I just want to be patted on the back and told it was great. But mostly I do it because I realized way down the road after years, that is how I give some love to people.
Yeah.
When I make meals
I love
for,
that.
relatives or
Yeah.
friends, that's just the way I get to say, hey, I was thinking about you. I made something for you.
Yes.
That's fun. I like that about myself.
I like that too.
Now, what I don't like, since you asked, I'd rather not say,
Sorry.
I can be impatient rather, stubborn. I can be a jerk. I try really hard not to be a jerk. But when I'm short with people, I get really upset with myself because I don't have much patience with that. But I get impatient sometimes, and I want everybody to see what I see and know that, come on, we can do this, and don't be a naysayer. Don't be, negative John or negative Susie. Come on, we got to go. So if they show me they're not on board, I get really impatient and frustrated, and I won't undress people or scream at them. But I just go, I butt my head at someone, Gail, what is it you don't understand?
Yes.
And I get home and realize, that wasn't so nice. So I that's been work in progress for a few decades, and it probably will be for the rest of my life.
Well, I want to stay respectful of your time, Joe, but I do have 2 more questions.
Go.
If you don't mind.
I'm good.
Best advice you ever received?
Best what?
Advice.
Wow. Gail, that's a really, really good
hard?
one. Be true to yourself.
Be true to yourself.
Yeah, do what you believe is good for you, but also good for others.
Okay.
That's the best advice I ever got.
Okay. And how do you want to be remembered?
I don't know. Just somebody who cared about, other people.
Yeah.
And, cared enough about them to try and create opportunities for them. I've had some companies where we employed lots of people, and that becomes, you're really employing their families.
Oh, you are.
And so we shape an entire generation.
More than one.
Yes, and it's a humbling thing. I mean, it's truly humbling, and you realize, that's a burden, and you have to do the right thing. And believe me, I've made mistakes. I've done the wrong thing, and I've been wrong to people, but I'm grounded by trying to come back. Okay, that was wrong, Joe.
Yeah.
You know it.
Yeah.
Come on, pull it back in. Let's do the right thing, because those people are counting on you.
Right.
I stumbled onto something years ago, Gail, that for me was kind of a revelation. It's not anything I read in a book, but we used to have a company retreat at the ad agency because we got so big, and it's like, how do we keep the core values known to everybody?
Sure.
So we had a retreat, a day and a half long, all day, one day, and then a dinner to celebrate the prior year, recognize people with awards. The awards were never about dollars and cents, not sales awards. They were
Nice.
always about who's living this core value
The
the most,
values.
who's living this core
Love
value
it.
the most. So we recognized that type of achievement within the company. And one of the things, I was speaking at one of those retreats, and somebody was asking me a question, so what do you need more of from us? And so there's several hundred people in the room, because we work for you. And I said, no, you don't. I work for you. You got to understand, my job changed. I don't know when it changed. And that's the first time I ever said it.
It just came out.
It just came out. And I've realized ever since then that when people join, my company, now have a few companies, if you will, they're much smaller in terms of number of headcount than the ad agency was. Although in the soccer alone, we're over 50 people. So we're actually a headquarters company in Greenville, because there aren't a lot that are more than 50. But what I realize is I truly, those people don't work for me. I work for them. And if I'm going to live that and do my best to support them, that helps me. You know, we reach our goals, which are my goals. So it seems real unselfish. It's not. It's selfish as it can be, but it's selfishness that's applied, I think, in a way that really does help other people.
Yeah.
So that's part of the joy
Joy.
of my life.
I love the word.
Yeah.
Is there anything I should have asked you but didn't?
No, I got a recipe. If you want to share recipes, share recipes.
What was your last best meal
My last best
that you
meal?
cooked?
Well, just yesterday, I cooked something
Okay.
for a reporter,
Nice.
of all things, for a little feature that Talk Magazine is going to do. And it's one of my favorite all-time recipes. It's about 20 years old. And it's a one-dish chicken cut up into 8 pieces, done in a teriyaki cream sauce. Excuse me, tarragon cream sauce.
Tarragon.
Yeah, and you know, if you want a kitchen to smell good, start browning the skins of chicken pieces.
Always. Always. Roasted chicken.
That and
Yes.
bacon, you know.
Yeah.
That, and I made a cheesecake, and then I made, also with Gretchen as sous chef, our favorite salad, which is a family recipe for salad right out of the 60s. It's great.
Do you share these recipes?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
I might take you
I
up on
might
that.
put them in a book sometime. Yeah.
Oh, that's a great idea. You totally should.
Kind of combination of life learnings, business,
Yes.
but how those lead into recipes,
You
like
should,
a
Joe.
recipes for success type thing.
I
So,
love
yeah,
it.
anytime you want recipes, girl,
Yes.
you got your source.
All right.
Yeah.
You heard it here first. The
Yeah.
book is on the
No,
way.
It's my pleasure.
Joe, thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure.
It was just a thrill to learn more about you.
Well, thank
really
you.
appreciate it.